will prescribe or say this is what we like new techs to have, and many do. But at this point, I can't tell you this will be Central Coast New Tech graduation requirements because they're not board approved yet. That will be coming. But to give you kind of the insight of what that would be, is New Tech prescribes a minimum of 12 units of college course credit upon graduating high school. The idea is to get students out taking college courses, get them used to that, so when they graduate and go into a 2 or 4 year, it's not a shock for them. They're used to some degree, college courses and how that works. Most New Tech kids, most New Tech students have 20 units or above. And so they start taking them from junior year, sophomore year on. Senior projects, they must complete a senior project. So those used to go into Cal Poly, building in that capstone project. Show me what you've learned in a way that puts it all together. And so having to do a senior project. Digital portfolios. So they start keeping their work that they feel. The students build their portfolio. They're not told what they have to put in there. They start selecting their work that they feel best represents them. Because the point is, by the time you get out in your senior year, you're going to be showing a potential employee on a college application or a college interview. Show them you. And so that's what those students start doing. They start selecting the work that they feel best represents them. And so they have that by the time they graduate. It's a requirement. They do internships, so they must complete a 50-hour internship. Many are done in the community that they reside in. Start working out in the community that you reside in with those business people. Start forming some relationships. Many of those turn into jobs. Start getting some real-world experience before you get out into the real world. See if that's what you want to do before you get the degree and then figure out you don't like it. Which sometimes happens. Get that real-world experience. They also do community service, junior year and senior year as well. New Tech students can do sports, they can do activities. It is different because New Tech doesn't offer sports. Central Coast New Tech will not offer sports teams. New Tech students can still take sports at Napomo High School or Ronald Reagan High School. Some of the specifics, I actually just talked to, where'd she go? Michelle Johnson. She had just emailed the new commissioner of CIF. Some of the specifics we're still waiting to hear about, and they're actually working on some new proposals that they will vote on in May regarding how that works in terms of residency or boundary and which school you can play at. But New Tech students can play sports. Realize, though, it's a different level of commitment. It can happen, but it's a different level of commitment. Because if you're not there due to you have to go to a game or get an early practice or something, it's not just you missing. Remember, you work in teams every single day. You're now not there, which means your team is suffering. Doesn't mean it can't happen. There are New Tech kids that play sports and do fine. But it's a reality of it's a greater responsibility to take on, to do sports. And so I don't say that to not take sports. I played sports at Ronald Reagan High School. I love sports, they're great. But I want to be transparent in that it is a greater responsibility to take on to take sports. In terms of activities, it's a student-led, student-centered culture at Central Coast New Tech. So those clubs and activities that the students want to start, we'll get advisors, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do what they want to do. Can they participate in outside? So that'll be myself. Michelle Johnson knows me very well. In fact, when I was from pretty young on. So we've been talking a lot in terms of the collaboration we can have between her campus and mine, and her students and mine in extracurricular activities and clubs, before school, after school, those sorts of things, and working to share those resources and share those possibilities that are there. And I feel very blessed to have Michelle be such a huge supporter and proponent of this. It makes a big difference, and I appreciate that. So thank you. So those things will happen. A lot of it is, I want to wait here. Once my students are identified and I start working with those students, what do you want? If you want it, let's do it. Let's get it done. Again, the whole point is to be student-centered. So those activities, those things will be there for their students because it is a very student-led, student-centered campus or culture. So that's some of the review. Here's some new things that have come out. And so some of you may have already heard this. I reported to the board Tuesday night. We're going to open to 150 ninth graders. So based on the response that we had and the ability to allow more students to be part of this and to have it grow, we're going to open up to 150 ninth graders. Starting in the fall. With that, we've added 6 teachers. So I'll be a social studies teacher that will add with that. Start times and end times will be the same as Napomo High School, so starting at 7:45, ending at 2:45 to allow for that, because PE the first year will actually be taken at the Napomo High School campus. I won't have the capacity in facilities and teaching to do PE, and so working with Michelle Johnson and her staff, will have PE happen at Napomo High School the first year. And so with that, it works best to align with Napomo as much as we can. But we have our own lunch, we have our own break, we have our own school that we'll work with PE in terms of outsourcing that. But those are some kind of general things. So a sample schedule, again, this is sample. I don't have my staff yet. So some of these things, the details will be worked out as the staff get identified, the students get identified and know what they're, where they're at in terms of math, what the recommendations are, all those things. But a sample schedule, to give you a rough idea, would be something like this. So PE first period. So this is set. All my students will take PE first period at Oklahoma High School. That'll allow for collaboration for myself and my teachers every day, which is huge when you open a new school. And so that part will pretty much be set. Then we'll have tentatively set combination of biology and digital media. We have English and social studies. Math and Spanish are not going to be combined. They're just there for in terms of kind of just laying it out that they will not be combination courses. Math more than likely, again, this is not set in stone. This is a sample. Math more than likely will be something probably like algebra and geometry. And then we'll have Spanish 1. So we look at basically 95-minute blocks. The blocking is done because it's very difficult to do project-based learning in a non-block or a traditional bell schedule, which is about a 52-minute period. So we will have block. The exception would be PE because that's at Oklahoma High, which does not operate on blocks. We'd have a 30-minute lunch, a 10-minute break. That's exactly the same as both high schools operate now. And we'd have a 25-minute built-in advisory built into that as well. So that kind of gives you at least a beginning idea of what a sample schedule for next year would be like, or what those are the courses that are going to be offered next year. And realize year one is my most restricted time in terms of a master schedule or what I can offer. I have the least amount of teachers I'll have. So what I can offer is the least amount. As we grow each year, so we add basically 125 students each year, more teachers, then the availability of different classes will open up. But at this point, I'm very limited in what I can offer, and that's just because every new tech is their first year. That's your least amount of students, or least amount of all students and teachers that you have. But those will be the courses at this point that we're going to offer. So, in terms of some of the things that we're going to have, we will have some use of existing buildings. So I'll come Baker talk pretty quickly here in some of the facilities. We will have a new building brought in. It's a Gen 7 building. It's really cool. It is kind of state-of-the-art, made of the very environmental friendly, but also very tough, and the longevity of these is very high. They last much longer than portables. They're modular buildings, so they make them and then they bring them and set them up. But they can be set up to reduce energy consumption by quite a bit. So they're set up with, you can set them up with photovoltaic if you want. They're set up with to use natural light quite a bit with built-in louvers that adjust based on the amount of sunlight that are there. All these cool new designs that they have in the new buildings. So we'll have one of those on campus to start in the fall. And so you look at inside is also very new and kind of ergonomic. You set up with these teaching walls that are set up for really project-based learning, that facilitating type of atmosphere that happens when you teach in a new tech or a classroom in a new tech. So we're excited to have one of these with very natural lighting, very quiet HVAC systems, and very conducive to a great learning environment. And so I'll turn it over really quick to Mr. Baker to take you through some of the facilities, since this is all his job to put it together.
Thank you, Dan. Real quickly, as Dan said, the buildings that we ordered from Gen 7 are, there's two areas that led us to that decision, money and time. And when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of time, you can do typical design build. Well, we didn't have either of those, so we started to look at pre-constructed permanent modular buildings, not relocatables. There's a difference because those are moment frame buildings. These are actually have a lot of concrete in them and a permanent foundation. But the performance of the buildings, because the district is very interested in moving to reduce our energy consumption throughout the entire district. So we want to be very responsible about the buildings that we do put back on our campuses, no matter where it is, if it's Mapomo or any other school site. But the new tech site is just south of this building. It was originally designed as an M&O facility when this campus was built. Again, in part of utilizing of the buildings that we had, we wanted to, in order to save costs that way. The building on the far left is Building 90. That was the original M&O building. That's going to be modernized to be a number of usable areas. It might be a classroom, it could be a meeting room, a conference room. It's approximately 2,000 square feet. It has restrooms. It's a CMU building much like this building, and so some of the design methodologies are a little bit tricky to try to get that building to perform as a conditioned building when it was originally designed not to be that way. So then if we move left, the building's about 15 degrees is the new Gen 7 building that Dan just mentioned. excuse me, it's about 4,800 square feet, 3 classrooms of 1,600 square foot each, and then a restroom facility on the far south side of 12 by 40 with the boys and girls restroom. We moved into the 3 relocables that are currently on site. Those will be modernized for teaching areas as well. So we're looking forward to it. It's coming quick, and I know that these buildings are going to be nice for the teachers, for the students. These buildings beat the current energy codes by 20% out of the box. They perform well acoustically, visually. They're easy on. You can stand anywhere in that 1,600 square foot classroom. The teacher just talks normally, you can hear. There's not pockets of deflection that normally. So the acoustics are very well. And then the building on the far left is an ROP building now. Those have additional restrooms, and for our fixture count, we had to utilize that to accommodate the build out of that program, which is about approximately 500 students, I believe. So in year 3 or 4, those restrooms will get us to where we need by fixture count. So that's typically the design. If you want to go down and see it anytime during the day, you're more than welcome. Just give us a call. We'll take you on a tour. But it's going to be nice. It's not going to look anything like it does now, so we'll take some before and after shots, and I think you'll all be amazed at what we can do with the budget we've been given. So again, oh yeah. So phase 2, years 3 and 4, potentially there could be, because we have to accommodate 500 students. There may be another Gen 7 added. There may be partial Gen 7s, but all of those buildings will be the performing building that we want to put down in the footprint from the very beginning. So we'll see how those go. Again, it'll really depend on what the budget will allow us to do, but we'll always try to do the best we can, and we're confident that we can do that. So it may not look exactly like this conceptual drawing, but it'll be something close. So. Oh, did you have a question? Yeah, if you look at those lines, there'll be fencing and plantings that'll actually isolate that campus from this campus. But there are pathways and accessible routes that will get back and forth. Absolutely, that'd be a little bit all that.
They won't make that mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm almost done, we'll open up for Q&A, and then, for those that need to go, can go. So upcoming events, so just some things to be aware of. The application deadline is the 12th of January, then in a week later, on the 19th, will be the lottery for those if we have more than we need. Orientation night will be somewhere in mid-March, and so that'll be for those students that are selected, very akin to what the 2 high schools now, they do an 8th grade parent-student orientation night. We'll do the same thing in mid-March for our students, and I'm working with the head of new school development, Tim Prestiato from the New Network, to come in, work with our students and parents, show them ECHO and how it works, and start doing some kind of rubber meets the road is what I would call it, things that start thinking about our school colors, our school mascots, start making it a tangible thing that New Tech is happening. And so we'll do that in mid-March. Any additional meetings we may hold in April to June, and again, if you're on there, you'll know. It is not going to be anybody left out. If you're selected as one of the students, you'll definitely know. And so as the staff gets identified and begin working on things, if we hold additional information nights or activities, we'll definitely let you know. And then we'll do a ribbon cutting dedication August 9th. And then also basically, here we go, first day of school will be August 16th. And so some upcoming things for you guys to be aware of. In terms of information, thank you, Mr. Ryan Ferran, for organizing the website. It's a great website, centralcoastnewtech.org. This is a screenshot from it of today, basically, or yesterday, where you can go on and get tons of information relating to Central Coast New Tech. You can get information on New Tech Network, other New Tech schools, tons of stuff to go and check out if you're interested. A couple things, you can always email the ccnth@lmc.org if you have questions. If you want to get on that email list, there are 2 pink sheets in the back, and we use that to any information we're disseminating out about Central Coast New Tech, you'll automatically get that email. So if you're not part of that and you would like to, go ahead and put your name and email down on the pink sheet over there on the round table, and you'll be part of that notification of any upcoming events. And so with that, that's kind of what we got. If you got any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer as best I can at this point. It's 7 o'clock, and if you need to go, by all means, feel free. It's okay to go. And you can always email if you have questions. Mine is just dneff@lmusd.org. If you want to email me as well, but an email there would get forwarded to me as well. So I'll open it up for questions for anybody that has questions, and then go from there.
Have you identified the pool of applicant teachers as you look at putting on staff?
So the question is, how do I identify potential teachers, or how do we do that? So what we've done, we've flown the positions, so we've internally flown. And the idea is we want to hire our own teachers. And we want to use, I think our best teachers are here. And so we've, Michelle is from HR, that department has flown those positions, those openings, and then basically through those applicants, probably next month is when we'll look at doing our first round of interviews. And so we will interview and select those teachers that fit in with the idea of doing project-based working, project-based learning, and teamwork and collaboration, and fit in with that model of what the new tech offers. Yes, to use our own teachers, correct. Use our own teachers. If when we're done with that, if we don't have positions filled, and then we would open up to outside. But initially, we've already done it to fly within the district and use our own teachers.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how long it takes a teacher to change the mentality from teaching quote-unquote to facility.
Good question. So just to repeat so everyone can hear, the idea is, well, what's it like for a teacher to change? Because it is literally kind of a paradigm shift of how you teach. And me as a teacher, every single new tech I went to, I asked the teachers there, to tell them, I understand this is a totally different way of doing business. Do you feel supported in doing it? And they said, yes. It's hard work. It's hard. You have to develop these projects. It's about 40 to 50 hours of front time of developing each project, especially at the beginning when you're new to it. But they all said, we feel very supported. I don't want to go back to doing business the old way. So built in with how do the teachers get to that point, that's where the New Tech Network comes in. They have a tons amount of professional development. So some examples. When a teacher is identified, they must attend 2 days shadowing of a current New Tech teacher. So they will go and literally shadow for 2 days a New Tech teacher and see what that's like, and talk with them and meet other staff and be in that environment for 2 days. There's a 5-day training that they attend where they learn how to do project-based learning. They start actually developing their first projects and get used to that method. Then once the year starts, within their first year, they're assigned a professional development coach that they correspond with. New Tech Network prescribes and orchestrates. They call it Meeting of the Minds, where they have other New Tech, people get together and that collaboration, that professional development happens. I'm assigned a site coach. New Tech Network is very much wants you to be successful. It's in their best interest, and that's why you see that growth, because it is a successful model, and that comes from all that professional development that is built into being part of the network.
How would you say that homework is compared to a standard school at a New Tech school?
So the question is, how does homework compare? It's a good question. Some of it's going to be dependent on the course. Some will be dependent on the level of the course, whether you're talking, doing project-based learning with freshmen is different than doing project-based learning with seniors that have done it for 3 years. And so that scaffolding and that grading of your expectations and what you're doing with the project, it's a grading. It's got to be gradual. So the homework piece, there's going to be variables there with it. It's going to be a little bit different because it's related to teamwork. So if I'm in a team with other students, I have my individual responsibilities of things that I have to get done. But as a group, we are all responsible for that final project to do too. So it's this dynamic that works back and forth. So yes, New Tech students will have homework. You're going to be going home and having them do things. That is where you see a lot of shift, and this it happens, but I experienced this in talking with the students, and I literally had a student tell me, well, it's my job to learn. It's not the teacher's job to learn. It's my job that I learn. And I didn't bait that answer or anything. We were just talking. I was just talking with a panel when I was up at Sacramento New Tech. It's that culture that is built upon, I'm responsible for my education. I can go out and figure things out because I have to. Establishing that knows, that needs to know. That's the first thing they do every time they get a new project is, okay, this is what we need to find out. How are we going to find this information? And so there's much more independent work that's done, whether it's homework or done in class. is going to be dependent upon the course, the teacher, the time of the project, the time of the year. So yes, there will be homework. It'll be different than traditional homework. You're not going to be doing worksheets and going home and doing X number of problems out of the book. It's going to be much different that way. But new textbook students will tell you, and I'll tell you right off the bat, it's hard. Those students work. They work incredibly hard. They're proud of that, and then they get a great sense of gain from it, but they'll tell you, they work their tails off. They work hard. And so it's not an easier route as much. It's probably harder in a different route.
Do they not have like counselors or something to support them?
So counseling piece, for the first part, because it's such a small number of students, I kind of wear, as I am now, multiple hats, but some of that I'll work with Michelle Johnson and Julie Donahue and Joe Hubble, the current counselors that are here, to work with that. As we get built, if I can talk, that'd be nice. As we build and get bigger, then that counseling piece will come in with that counseling support that is there. But they'll receive counselor support. They'll be on track with whatever pathway they want to follow with it.
Compared to a normal high school, is it going to be more of a multi-age classrooms, and you say pocket-based learning and smaller class size and school size, or is it going to be more like normal high school, as a freshman class, sophomore class mix? Is there going to be more intermix?
Some is going to depend on the course. I mean, overall, the new text I biz, you still have kind of that age differentiation because you know, especially like in math, where we have such scaffolding and material. I can't just jump to a geo course if I want to. There's basic fundamental things that I need to learn. So you're still going to have, typically kind of that age breakup, but not always. Some of that will be dependent on the course and the prerequisites that follow that course, or what's going on. But that part is probably a little bit akin to a traditional high school, and you typically have, your typical freshman classes, sophomore classes, junior classes. Not 100%, but still probably more so than not.
This is beginning, so I apologize. I understand it's a charter school.
No, it's not. We are a regular public school, just like Royal Granny High School and Napoleon High School.
Okay. So how does the new tech fit in? Is the new tech a consortium of a group of schools? Doesn't new tech have schools across different locations?
So New Tech is a national nonprofit organization that kind of prescribes this. There are New Techs that are charters, there are New Techs that are dependent charters, there are New Techs that are regular public schools, just like we are. So that is more kind of a district decision, local decision that is made. That New Tech doesn't particularly care.
Using some of what new tech as a company has set up and leveraging it into our school here.
So we will belong to the New Tech network, and so they provide that model that we will follow. Within that model, there are what I would call non-negotiables and negotiables. There are certain things you must do in order to belong to the New Tech network. There are things that you can choose as a site of how you want to do it, whether that's class choice or whatever. So that's where that flexibility comes in. But they are a national nonprofit that has this kind of orchestrates how to run this model of school. Like what?
For lack of a better description, it's like a franchise.
Yeah, you could probably, yeah, you could do that. Sure. Sure. Hey, from this side.
I have a page.
Okay.
So how is math going to work at different levels? Are you going to have two math teachers, like let's say you have an algebra 2 freshman or geometry freshman?
Teachers or courses? Or both?
So are you going to have more, are you just going to offer algebra 1 or are you going to offer?
So some of that, as a lot of things are predicated upon what teachers I have. At this point, I'm only going to have one math teacher. Year one, I have one math teacher. So that's where, I can't say 100% because it's going to be dependent upon the kids that I have. Once I have my kids and I know what math they're recommended for, then but more than likely, probably Algebra 1 and Geo is the two courses we would offer year one. As I gain staff, then the complement of courses that will be offered will grow. Will I ever have a master schedule like the Pomo High School or no, because I don't have those kinds of staff. But yeah, the number of courses in math or really science or social studies or English electives will grow as my staff grows, as we build in each students each year. We had that 125 each year to max out that fourth year.
And then I saw a lot of Macs and a lot of PCs.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
What's the choice?
Both. At this point, we haven't literally purchased computers right now.
Right.
Most new techs have both, and they do it out of a couple reasons. One, it's beneficial for students to be fluent on both. even for me, getting an iPad or whatever, so I have a little bit better fluency and my skills in PC are much stronger. In terms of a lot of digital media labs, tend to be Mac-based because in that area, the digital media arts, Macs do much better. In terms of, I've had a parent ask me, maybe you, about, hey, if we're looking at getting our son a laptop, if he makes it in, which one? Doesn't matter. I've seen New Tech principals with PCs, I've seen with Macs, I've seen teachers work on PCs, I've seen New Tech teachers with Macs. That part is really more of a preference in terms of, which operating system you like better, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Typically, New Techs at this point, very tentative, I would say we're probably going to have both. Typically digital media labs run the Mac platform, and then a lot of the other ones tend to be more PC-based. But it's in terms of for personal use, it's preference.
So it's not a requirement to have your own laptop?
No. We will ask students if you want to bring your own, and we will have ability to, campus Wi-Fi open to what they call foreign devices or devices owned by personal people, and then we will have the ability to offer students one-to-one access that cannot bring their own or afford their own device, whether that's in computing or computers in the classroom or netbooks, or that's something as a district we're actually, our IT director is working with Dell and some other groups to see what packages they want to put together and looking at cost and service and all that stuff to see what our best options are. We're actually working on that right now. And some of that'll vary from New Tech to New Tech as well as what you see. Napa New Tech, let's say as an example, they average about 50-60% of the kids bring their own device, and then after Christmas, about 75% of the kids have their own device. And that just because the kid would rather have their own. If they can get something nicer, they just want their own. It allows them to personalize it. Fine, bring your own stuff. It's better. It gets them used to start working on their own thing, because the reality is when they go to college or into a career, they're gonna have their own device anyways. So the sooner they can get to that, that's fine.
This is our first high schooler, so I guess a lot of my questions will be answered at the open house, but I was curious about assessments, whether or not the AP classes and how a student gets chosen for that in a smaller setting like New Tech High School.
So you're asking, so it's a couple different areas there, so I just want
Yes.
to clarify versus assessments versus AP. So in terms of assessment, students still receive the traditional grades just like they would at any other site or high school. The difference comes in what their grade is, the components of that grade. So you have more specificity in terms of written communication, oral communication, critical thinking, work ethic, those strands that come in. It's still the same content standard. So let's say I was a biology teacher at Roy Grandy High School. So if I'm a biology teacher at New Tech, I still have to teach the same state biology standards. My students will still take the same state biology STAR test.
But isn't there an AP level even at a freshman?
So year one, we're not offering AP.
Okay.
As again, that comes out of I got 6 teachers.
Right.
There's only so much, and so in terms of where we're going with the AP route, that'll be kind of determined as we build out, as we get bigger. Overall, New Techs tend to not do APs as much. They tend to do more of the concurrent enrollment in college courses.
Okay.
I'm not going to say we're not doing AP because I don't know when we get to that point. I can tell you year one, we're not. So a lot of the AP, if it were to come to fruition, would be more in that junior, senior year. That's when typically APs are actually taken. Things you will have, the examples I can think of, like Roy Grandy High School has pre-AP English. They have a pre-AP and AP system for English, from 9 to 12. There's 10th grade year, there's AP Euro World History, those things. But that comes out of a very large school with a huge AP program.
Right.
So I don't know if does that answer?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Using the internet in school, is there going to be safeguards?
Yeah, so even now in terms of, students that have access to computers, even at Pomo High where there's quite a few, there's still, it's not going to be wide open. There'll still be some content filters, there'll still be those things, but there'll be a lot of educating and the expectations of you're here to get business done versus just you will conform to these rules sort of thing. So it becomes a cultural piece in terms of this is how we operate. Just like New Techs don't have belts. They don't have belts. And for a lot of people, including traditional education, what? How do you not have bells at a high school? They don't. There's an education that comes with that. There's a learning curve that comes with that, but it also sets a certain tone as you're a young adult, you're gonna be treated as one, and these are the expectations I hold you to. But in terms of accessing, utilizing the district's network and stuff, there's still the security agent and Lightspeed, there's still those things built in with it as well.
Schools do, because what about those two rings of elevators?
So for their ability to tie into the school network, they still have to go through those things. But again, their ability to bring their own device, yeah, that opens up a can of worms. There are a lot of schools that, no, you cannot bring your own device. But that shift is changing. You look at even the Tascadero Unified, some of the other sites are looking at allowing their students to bring their own devices, again, to push more the education, the character education, the responsibility piece in these are the expectations we want to hold you to see if you can do it, because at high school, it's not long before they're 18 and they're an adult. And then the idea is we need to get them to that point rather than just have it happen. But yeah, it's a mix, it's a balance in what you do. Sure, so what I'll say is, if you want to stay and ask questions, you can go ahead and come up. That way, if you feel like you need to go, you want to go, you're more than welcome to go. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you guys' time and being out here. Yeah, registration forms, a sign-up sheet for the group email list is right here at the table. See those guys on the way out. Thank you.